You can't really be friends with anybody who has a hint of jealousy about anything that you're doing.
This session is about something that I think we all can identify with. It's breaking free from toxic ties. And those toxic ties are toxic relationships, friendships, partnerships, whatever the case may be. We all have dealt with it at one point or another. We all may even still be dealing with it. And even worse, we may be dealing with the remnants of it, because oftentimes those toxic relationships, prolongs with us. We get traumatized by them. And so, this is a way to discuss it, talk about it, talk about some strategies on dealing with it or not, and more importantly, releasing it, disengaging from it, and allowing ourselves to live on and live free and live in peace. At the very basic of life, we always want to live in peace. So, that's what it's about. Put it into the chat if anyone have dealt with toxic relationships. Put in the chat, say, I've dealt with it. I've dealt with it. And I've learned strategies. A lot of strategies on how to diffuse and to navigate toxic relationships. Because in speaking about those type of relationships, there are things you can do, but then there are certain relationships where you feel like it's nothing you can do. Let's talk about this. If you are on a job and you have a toxic relationship with a coworker, or even worse, a manager, it's not so easy just to say, oh, I have a strategy I'm going to apply and tomorrow it's going to be better. You don't have the control over the other person. The only thing you can control is yourself. And sometimes it's not so easy just to pack up and move on, depending on your job, your responsibilities, and so many different factors. So you do have to figure out, how do you deal with toxic relationships that are not easy to navigate, not easy to get past or to get out of. A lot of times we also have toxic relationships that are in our home. They're in our home with family, friends, spouses. And in that case, it's not a person that you want to get rid of, but it's a situation that you want to change. How do we do that? Navigating toxic relationships, friendships, and how do we deal with that? What kind of strategies are there in dealing with that? So here we go. Dealing with someone who drains energy, someone who words cuts deep, someone who presence leave you questioning yourself, doubting yourself. These are some of the things that happens with toxic relationships. It's not always verbal. It's not always, sometimes it is, but not always physical. But it's just the small things. The energy, and I always speak of energy because energy is everything. Sometimes the energy is just not right. And the energy is draining. And we are living in an environment now that we're dealing with so many different things happening in the world, happening around us, happening within our home, within our life, within our atmosphere. The last thing we need is for things to drain our energy. If anything, we need things to pour into us so we can build up. So these are things that can be very distracting, can be hurtful, and ultimately can be harmful. You know, we have to figure out how do we navigate this without losing ourselves. I'm sure we've all been there before. What are some of the common toxic traits that people may have? Constant criticism, belittling, manipulation, saying things and doing things that ultimately is manipulative, lack of empathy and accountability, or someone who consistently, whenever you're around them and engaging with them, creates drama and conflict. And again, I go back to this. The reason we're talking about this because we know these things happen in the world. We know these things happen constantly in a volatile environment. But oftentimes these things happen to us in our own environment, in our homes, in our relationships, in our families, our friends. How do we mitigate this? How do we work through this? Oh, I see. Yes, Amanda joined. Thank you very much for joining. When we're dealing with these toxic relationships, we feel drained. And sometimes we take it on ourselves and now we feel like it's our fault. We did something wrong. Feel unworthy of spending time with someone like we're the problem. But oftentimes we're not the problem. Sometimes the person who is demonstrating this behavior may not even know that they're doing it. They may be aware, but may not be aware. But whether they're aware or not, it's affecting you. It's affecting your life. It's affecting your consciousness. More importantly, it's affecting your spirit. And we have to do something about it. We cannot just let that go. And I don't care who it is. I don't care who it is. We cannot just let it go and say, well, this is the way it is, and I'm going to live life like this. You don't have to live life like this. You can find a better way. Oftentimes, communication is the start. Being expressive and expressing, letting someone know I don't like this. This is happening. This does not make me feel good. This is not a good situation. That's not a nice thing to say. That's not a nice thing to do. Oftentimes, that's how it starts. But nevertheless, you have to create those boundaries and let people know this is what I will not tolerate because this is my life. You have a say in your life, as you should know that. The physical symptoms of being in and around toxic relationships and environments, stress. Oftentimes you'll have headaches and fatigue because your body will react to that energy and that tension that is there. It creates an internal conflict. What about that? Internal conflict that you may have because the person that you're dealing with is someone that you care about. How about dealing with someone that you care about and your interaction with them is not the best? In your mind, you will hope that they change. And oftentimes we wait for improvement or change or something to change. But again, this is someone that you care about. How do we navigate that? What does this say? Yes, that is where I am. I understand. And let me tell you, a lot of people are there. A lot of people are there. Because we're dealing in times where there's so many things are happening. And everyone is dealing with it, I would say, the best way they know how. But unfortunately, when people are dealing with stress, they're dealing with pressure and stuff like that, the first the first people that they take it out on, if they have to vent and let it go, is the people around them, the people that's closest to them. The people who are closest to them often get it first. Rarely do they go and take it to the people who are causing the stress. They come and bring the stress. But we, as individuals, do not have to tolerate that. And we have to find strategies. So we're going to talk about that today in manners in which we can deal with that. Because there are boundaries you have to set for your own peace and your own well-being. The impact of staying in and around toxic environment is mental health effects. Ultimately, it can have long-term mental health effects. It can cause anxieties, depression, self-doubt. It can even affect your overall lifestyle, because some people start to, instead of express themselves outwardly, as I'm suggesting, where it can start with communication, they do the reverse and they go inwards and they start to isolate themselves and start to keep it all in and keep it to themselves. And now that makes it even worse for the individual. There's a quote that I found that I thought was very effective. It say, staying connected to toxicity doesn't just hurt you. It prevents you from connecting to healthier and more fulfilling relationships and environment. And that's a fact, because now it starts to feel like it's holding you bondage, like you held in place with that situation and with that toxicity. And that's the worst place to be, you know. And if anyone is feeling that, is going through that, I'll send up prayers for you. And I hope that you find the strength and find the way to work through that. The first step is going to have to be what they call the come to Jesus moment, where you're going to have to accept things for what it is, accept the truth for what it is. This is, in fact, a toxic relationship. Yes, what is happening, what is being said, what is being done, what I'm feeling is not right. So you have to first come to terms with that. Acknowledge that the person is toxic to you. And no more excuses. You know, they always say the first, you know, a road to recovery or changing or doing or building up or building out is to recognize that you have the situation or you have the problem. You have to face it. Don't wait for them to change, because sometimes that may happen. Sometimes that may happen slow. It may happen fast. Sometimes it may not happen at all. But focus on what you can control. Focus on your own well-being. That's where we'll start. I see all the hearts. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate the love. I'm getting a lot of hearts. I really appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Identify. You know, we're all human beings. So, you know, let's be real. Let's really be real. In any certain toxic relationship, there could be a situation where you feel things are happening to you. So you could be quick to say, this is a toxic circumstances, and this person is doing that, and that person is doing it. Start pointing fingers. But sometimes you may be the toxic person. So in being real, recognizing that you are in a toxic circumstances, just make sure it's not you who are the toxic individual. Make sure that you look inwards and look at yourself and look at your own action and behavior, because one toxic thing doesn't make you better than the other. So if someone is creating an environment that's making you feel a certain way, and now you start to go back at them and start to do things that are toxic, that's just as bad. No way in the world will that help any situation. Certainly won't help you. So you got to be real. We got to look in the mirror and face ourselves first. Decide what type of toxic behavior you will not tolerate. To be real with that. Communicate clearly with the individuals. Now, as I mentioned before, that might not be so easy to do. Let's say, for an example, if you at work, you could be at a company where you have a boss, and off the time, if you have a boss, they may have a boss. They may have a boss. You can go to HR. What if you work for a company and your boss is the owner of that company? How quick is you going to get them to change their behavior, to change the way they talk to you, to change the way they act and they behave, and how it affects you every day, day in and day out? It's not going to be that easy. So you have to decide for yourself what I'm going to do. I'm going to have to set boundaries. I'm going to have to be clear with myself what I won't tolerate, because no matter who you are or where you are in this world, at some point or other, you're going to deal with these type of circumstances, and you have to find a way to make it better for yourself, to get to that level of peace externally, peace internally. So it's said that you may set boundaries and say, I set boundaries. This is what I won't stand for. But if you don't follow through with those boundaries that are not enforced are fruitless. If you say you can't tolerate something, if you say I draw the line here, well, then that's where you have to draw the line. Sometimes you have to disengage, reduce the frequency of engagement if you can, if you're able to do that. That means limiting the way you communicate someone and how often you communicate with someone who is creating that type of toxic environment for you and that energy. I keep saying toxic environment, but that can be so many, is a large spectrum. It can be a big thing where it's volatile. You know, some people are in a situation, and I pray for anyone who is, where it could be physical, where they're being harmed. But one that is really common and one that is so pervasive is a passive aggressiveness, the little subtleties, the little subtle negative things that happens that people do that over time eats at you and wears at you. Those things can wear you down. You know, at some point, you might have to go contactless. You might have to just say, I completely, it's going to stay away from this individual until I can get my bearings, until I can get back to a place where I found a way that I can interact, or I found the way where I can coexist. Sometimes you have to give yourself that time. They say pause and take time for yourself when you can, if you can. There are methods in dealing with toxic environments and toxic relationships. You can start practicing your self-care practice, journaling. I mean, you know, unfortunately, it may be a situation in situations that brings you to therapy. You may have to have therapy and talk to the professionals. I know Dr. GLK is one. And so I know that she knows about situations like this very well. You got to get to a spiritual grounding. You may have to put your hand on the Bible. You know, some people take you there. But one thing you can do is constantly surround yourself with positive people and supportive people. I had in my workshop for young people, I had a demonstration that I used to do. And I believe in this so wholeheartedly. And so I used to demonstrate. So I used to take a bucket, clear bucket, and it would be full of brown, dirty water. and the kids wouldn't even know what it was, you know, but they don't know that I had put watercoloring in it. It's only watercoloring. And I tell them that this is the negativity that you are feeling or you are dealing with or the environment that you're in. And one way that you can control that negativity and turn that situation around is to pour in positivity. That means constantly being around somebody who's supportive, someone who is lifting you up, not someone bringing you down. So what I do is I take an even larger clean water and I take that and I pour it into the brown water. And the more you pour it in, the water starts to turn. It starts to turn. It gets lighter and get lighter. And when I'm done pouring the larger bucket in, now the water's clear because that's pouring in positivity. And that's what we have to do with our life. Any way we can, pour in positivity. So if I'm in an environment that feels negative, I got to go and find a positive environment. People who lift me up, where I feel supportive. You can't just sit there and allow that to permeate because that's exactly what will happen. So you have to find ways to find positivity and surround yourself with it because we need it. We need all the love and support that we can get to do the things that we need to do in this world. It's enough negativity. Avoid guilt. Avoid feeling that you are the cause and it's your fault. You got to prioritize your well-being. You know, as I mentioned before, you can say, Pastor Auntie, thank you for joining. I appreciate you. Peace and love. You can the come to Jesus moment is facing the fact. There's a toxic situation. Am I attributing to it? Am I the toxic person or not? But if you're not and it's happening to you, then you have to prioritize yourself. And that is not selfish. I don't care who the person is. It's not selfish to prioritize yourself and your well-being so you can have some type of peace that's going to get you through the day. Again, toxic person can be anyone. It can be a loved one. It could be a friend, family, somebody you work with. It could be in your home. It can be, you know, where you work. It can be anywhere. And it's your job to identify it and to start working on it because the world we live in, I'm a type of person who it's a saying I use. I rehearse my luck before I even walk out the door. Before I even walk out the door, I know what the possibilities are. So when I put my financial analyst hat on, because I was financial analyst, that was my stock and trade. So I analyze everything. So I analyze, am I going to encounter a ruly person? Am I going to encounter someone who just want to be that way? Someone who wants to stand in your way, someone who want to stop your day, someone who want to ruin your day. I'm prepared for that. When I walk out the door, I'm prepared for come what may, because I know there's a possibility that it can happen. This is just the type of world we live in. So yeah, you have to put your armor and your shield on and be prepared for that, to take care of your self-care so you can have some type of peace, because if you do not, there is going to always be something. Everywhere you turn, you go to the corner store, you go to the supermarket, you go into work, you get on the highway, there's some aggressive person who's screaming at you for no reason. It's everywhere you turn. But you have to control that and not internalize that and let that affect you and your life and your day, because if you do, you'll be dealing with that every day. So, healing process. Give yourself time. When you take time, some time for peace, time to detox emotionally. Sometimes, again, if you have identified that you perhaps may have been a toxic contributor at some point, then you have to start to unlearn some of those patterns and traits and behavior that may attribute to that toxicity. We've talked about this many times, but I think this is going to be the running theme for the remainder of the year, and that's talk about having grace. having grace for others, but more importantly, having grace for yourself. Being real with yourself. So, what does it look like? What does it look like to set boundaries? Somebody tell me in the chat some of the things that you do when you have to hold people and their negativity at bay. What type of some of the boundaries that you need? Someone say what need a part. I'm taking that need to part ways. Having grace for myself. Oh, absolutely. Having grace. You know, we get hard on ourselves, sometimes hard on others, but oftentimes harder on ourselves. But we're human beings. We're human beings made up of flesh and blood, and we're very fragile. Human beings, we're very, very fragile, whether you know it or not. And we're constantly dealing with things, dealing with people, and we judging. More important, we judging ourselves. But we're only human beings made up of flesh and blood. You have to have grace in yourself and say, you know, I did something today. Hypothetically, I did something today, or I treated somebody away today, or I said something to someone today that I should not have came across that way. If I don't get a chance to reconcile that with that person, apologize or whatever, at least I'm going to know for myself that was wrong. And tomorrow I'm going to be better. I'm going to do better. And that has been a practice that I've been doing for maybe 2-3 years. It could be even more, but definitely at least 2 years. That each day I'm trying to be better. And I need to self-reflect oftentimes and wonder, did I handle that right? So I can ensure that the next time I handle it better and I do better. And it works. It works because now you're being mindful and you're being conscious of your actions and your behavior. And even more importantly, your words. The words matter. The words matter. It matters so much. It's not just the words, but the way you say something. You could say something 10 different ways and it will come off 10 different ways. And the person will take it 10 different ways. And it's the same thing. So just pay attention to those things. Dealing with so much. And if someone can say something to help them along, if someone can offer some kind words or advice, or someone who can offer something that can help someone get on their journey of finding peace, then it's worth it. It's necessary. So I don't want to always have all the heavy conversations, but we need to have these conversations. And I'm hoping that we can start a conversation and you can go off and have that conversation with your family and friends and so on and so forth in an effective manner. So I feel it's necessary. So that's why, you know, I'm bringing these topics to the table to have these conversations. I think it's necessary. We can't just sweep everything under the rug. We can't keep on acting like everything's okay. And we can't keep on allowing people to overstep their bounds and to disregard our boundaries. Because those boundaries that we set is where we find our comfort and our peace. And each and every one of us deserve to have comfort and peace. So thank you for joining me once again to my hour of power and praise on Sundays, 9 p.m. or 9 something. And I appreciate you. And I want you guys to protect your peace and to live in your truth. Always stay rooted. Always stay blessed. And always find yourself living with purpose. Thank you very much. This is my hour of power and praise with D.E. Wilder. I'm D.E. Wilder. I wish you all peace and blessings. Thank you very much. Have a good night.